Hello, fitness business nerds. I have a really exciting announcement for you. Are you ready? You've heard me talk about Unicorn Society a million times in this podcast, and right now, enrollment is open to join. So if you've heard us talking about it and you're thinking, gosh, I would really love to be part of that group someday, now is your moment. Early bird enrollment is open right now. Between now and June 12th, you can get our best possible rate for joining Unicorn Society. And in the group, you will have access to me and Mark Fisher and Pete Dupuis and Ben Pickard as your coaches to help you grow your business. And so now is the moment. We only do enrollment twice per year, right? So this is your last chance to join the group this year. You'll have to wait until 2023 if you don't join right now. So go find the link or visit businessforunicorns.com now and apply to join Unicorn Society before June 12th to get our best possible rate. I really hope you join, and I hope we get to work together soon. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. Well, hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. I'm here with Fisher today. What's up, my friend?
Nothing much.
Just, crushing this Tuesday, this fine Tuesday. We're recording a podcast for you lovely folks. So today, our topic, this might be a short one because we both decided we want to talk about this because one of our listeners asked us to address this topic. We're not sure we have the most to say about it, but we're going to tell you what we know. And today's topic is how to pick the right software for your gym.
Very sexy topic.
It's a super sexy topic. Don't get too excited, everyone. But it really is important because I think getting these decisions wrong are really costly. They cost time, money, energy, effort, emotional effort, and getting it right can really solve a lot of problems. Getting it right means you actually can save a lot of time, build in a lot of efficiency, use technology to your advantage to have real automation, real easy workflows, right? And so when you get it right and pick software that actually helps you improve your efficiency and your workflow, it's magical. And when you get it wrong and pick the software that doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and you have to switch to other software, it's a real pain in the ass. So let's just start with picking the right piece of software for the business. Let's just, Fisher, what are your initial thoughts on what are the things you would do to vet a new piece of software for Mark Fisher Fitness?
Yeah, my crudest high-level strategy for this, and the full disclosure is at this point in the business, thankfully, I don't actually personally have to be one to make most of the decisions because I have people in the operations that are close to the ground, if you will, to make those decisions. But broadly, what I propose to them is the same thing for you as the owner-operator who's likely the one making the call, which is find 3, probably not 2, probably not 5, vet the hell out of them, and then make a decision, right? So for a little bit more context, to find your 3 potential software platforms, I think you should ask around for personal references, if at all possible, in your professional network. If you know other training gym owners, presumably you do. I think that can be a good first step. I think you can do a little Googling if you get desperate, but usually you would want to ask a wide array of people, find out the pros and cons, and then look for the ones that you hear decent things about. Now, you're going to hear complaints about all of them, because my favorite definition of technology is things that don't quite work yet, right? Understand anything that is working is no longer considered technology, right? So the running water, for instance, that we take it for granted is a technology, but it works all the time, so it's not tech, right? So I just want to temper your expectations with all of these platforms that usually once you get in the vetting stage, God forbid you speak to salespeople, they will lie. I virtually have never had anyone not lie about some of the functionality. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just, it's a weird world we live in. Sounds so dark today, but getting back to my suggestion, you want to find your 3. And what I like about this is because, again, you want some variation, but I also want you to have some constraints, right? Related to that, I advise you spend no more than 30 to 60 minutes at absolute most on each platform getting to know them. When I say getting to know them, this is likely some combination of reading the website, reviewing video demos, talking to a salesperson. And then from there, I think you should, in most situations, rip off the Band-Aid and make a decision. There might be some utility based on the software platform, based on what it is, where perhaps you would want to do a little bit of a test run of more than one platform. I could see a case for that happening sometimes, but more often than not, I think you can rip off the Band-Aid, right? Because the typical training gym owner, if we were to zoom out here, you're probably looking at a tech software platform for scheduling and billing, You're probably looking at one for email communications. You're probably looking at one for text messaging communications. And they might be the one the same, depending on the provider that you use. And then depending on your model, you might have some training platform. At Mark Fisher Fitness, we use Team Builder, but there's obviously a lot of them that are commercially available. For a lot of you, those are going to be the main high-level buckets you would use. There's some other ones that maybe are a little too granular for the typical training gym owner, but so that's my initial thoughts on that.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a ton to add. Maybe let's add a little bit nuance here and there, but I think that's maybe even a first step before the vetting process, which is to get clear on what your needs are. Right? So if you're a training gym that bills weekly or bi-weekly, then that's a need you have, that the software should be able to check off that box right away, right? If you want it to do scheduling and billing all in one place, or you want to do scheduling, billing, and texting all in one place, then write that down. So I think there's kind of a needs assessment that's useful to go through first, and it should be you, and if you have a team, the rest of the team contributes to it, and make it a wish list, right? Be pie in the sky, right? Ask for everything you hope it would do, and that way you know what you're shopping for. And that way you know what you're looking for. See how many boxes each platform checks. And then I agree wholeheartedly with Fisher's. Like, yes, go talk to the salespeople, and they will give you a demo, and they will tell you it does even more things that it doesn't do. It doesn't do well. And that's okay. That's part of the process, because then I think the next thing, which Fisher mentioned, I just want to underscore, is then go talk to actual people who use it. And if you don't know any actual people who use it, then the salesperson should be able to connect you with actual people who use it. And then not only are you going through your needs assessment with the salesperson, go through your needs assessment with the actual person who uses it and have them walk through all the features that you say you want. And they'll tell you straight up whether it works or not. I know a lot of your Unicorn Study members, they use each other for that, and they will be brutally honest about their likes and dislikes of the software. And to Mark's point, most of them complain about most pieces of software most of the time. Yes. But once in a while, you'll find one that really works for you, or you get used to it. I think the only other thing that I'll say about picking a platform is that people often forget to ask about the kind of the onboarding process, right? Especially if you're switching from one platform to another, people tend to forget to ask, well, how do I get all my information into this new software, right? And some services will have a concierge level of service where you can pay more, and they'll have people who migrate all your information for you. Some software will have, some automatic API where they will take it for you for free from the previous platform to the new one. And there's some platforms where you are on your own. Where if you want to move all your data into this new platform, good luck typing it all in by hand. And so I think getting really clear about the migration process is something that I know I personally have forgotten to ask in the past enough about, and learned, damn, that's going to be several weeks or months of work for us if we go with this option. And so I think that's maybe one more place I'd encourage people to look. Yeah. Fisher, let's just maybe pull that thread just a little bit further, which is, instead of just finding the platform, often people are switching from one to the other. Right. And we know a lot of people these days who are trying to, the best they can, run from MindBody Online, for example, right, to all the competitors that have sprouted up in the last 5-10 years. And so what we have a lot of experience at MFF from moving from one platform to the other, and often that requires layers of planning and communication. Can you just say a little bit about lessons learned there?
Yeah, I think that, I think just in experience, sure, we will not name the guilty, but at one point, as an example of how a lot of things you hear from a salesperson might not be possible, at one point MFF was moving away. We were leaving our current billing and booking software, MBO, to another one. We spent months of human hours to really prepare for this rollout and move over all our people, and we finally reached, to our credit, instead of falling into sunk cost fallacy, which is when you keep doing the thing well past the point you should, because you're like, well, I'm already doing it, I'll just keep doing this thing. To our credit, we reached a tipping point. I don't even remember what it was, but it was some very small functionality that we were promised it didn't have, and we canceled the whole thing. We decided we were not going to do the move all. So I think having a little bit of grain of salt for what you hear is going to happen, I think, is a helpful thing in these transitions. And I think probably grain of salt, and this is probably true even if you're starting the platform, but certainly if you're migrating, as far as how long these things are going to take. Now, I want to be clear, because I don't want to sound as if I'm accusing salespeople of lying or these tech platforms of being nefarious. They are, gentle listener, like you. They are imperfect people with an imperfect team. Their systems are not always perfect. Their team is not always perfectly trained. They don't always make the right decision. They don't always have good communication skills. Because I can say one of the challenges that we've had at MFF that makes us a little atypical and a little, frankly, harder to speak to this maybe than some is we are such an unwieldy behemoth that oftentimes our onboarding for no matter what we've done has been way longer than anyone would have anticipated. And again, I don't attribute this to people lying. I attribute this to we're just unusually complex, and a lot of, and this, to be clear, this is beyond, I think, even tech platforms. This is broadly speaking with any vendor that we've worked with was not really aware of what they were getting into often than not. And it has led to, I think, a lot of frustration. Now, if you're a vendor and you're listening, I'm not sure what the move is here, right? Because I would like to say that your move is consider perhaps under-promising and over-delivering. However, my assessment, my assumption is when I look at contractors for probably all small businesses, but certainly training gyms, software platforms for training gyms, I think you seem to see a similar creep that occurs when you are vetting contractors to do a remodeling in your kitchen. Which is to say, since everybody is lying just a little bit and everybody's underbidding just a little bit, if you're completely honest that I can't tell you how long this is going to take, it might take 6 months, it might take a year and a half, your budget is this, I'm likely need at least 50% more, but it could go 3x over if we get really unhappy. That type of honesty, I think, unfortunately, is not rewarded in the market. So my theory on all of this, on all of these kind of contractors, vendors, et cetera, is what happens is there becomes this game where everybody is fibbing the truth and having to overpromise. Otherwise, they don't get the job. And of course, I don't have a great way to solve because, again, understand, I don't think any of these individuals are intentionally lying. I think the planning fallacy bedevils all of us. And to some extent, you are incentivized if you are a salesperson in a tech software platform to overpromise how quickly and how painless this migration is going to be. You sign up on Monday and we're going to migrate. All your clients will be there on Monday and there won't be any glitches. And that's just never been my experience. And at this point, I would share that that's no longer a surprise to me. So I share that with you. And perhaps Keeler can provide some actionable things to make that go better, where mine is perhaps just giving you some emotional love and support. So you go into that forewarned as forearmed. You're less likely to be enraged and feel like you're being ripped off and the people you're working with are incompetent, because more often than not, that's the case. They're just doing the best they can. It's just almost everybody in the world sucks at planning, and virtually all projects are more difficult than feels fair when one is beginning.
Yeah, I think it's smart, Fisher. I think what I'm hearing you say is that it's really kind of an expectation setting game for yourself and maybe your team to make sure you go in knowing that while they told us this should take a week,
right,
let's all be emotionally prepared for 2 months. Right? Yes. Let's just be ready for that. So if it does happen that we are the worst case scenario, let's just happen that maybe we are more complex than they're anticipating. Let's just, be ready for the fact that maybe during this migration, maybe someone on our team is going to leave or be sick or, that all kinds of things can happen. So just kind of us just being ready for the fact this might be twice as hard or take twice as long or cost twice as much. And I think your kitchen remodel is a salient one for me, having just done that last year. Yeah, it's true. And even just the construction that we've been through at MFF over the years, it's always cost more and taken longer. And I think that, when talking about migrating and changing tech platforms, it's true. I think if I was going to give people just kind of just a high-level way of thinking about migrating from one platform to another. I mean, there's kind of a famous change management paradigm that many of you will probably have heard of, but maybe haven't used explicitly before, which is this, it's an old one, but it's the idea of 3 phases of change. The first phase is you kind of unfreeze your current reality, then you make a change, and then you refreeze your new reality, right? And that idea of unfreeze, change, and refreeze, I think is meaningful because I think those are the 3 chapters of migrating software, right? There's a moment where you kind of unpack what you're currently doing and map it onto the new software. And at that moment, you have to communicate that to your team internally. You might have to communicate a little bit to your clients or people externally, right? That this stuff is coming. You're going to see some changes down the pike. Then there's a period where the change happens, right? When in some cases, when it comes to software, you might be using both at the same time. Because there's some people whose billing, let's say, is still going through on the old platform, but there's new people whose billing is going through on in the new platform. So there's a moment where you're straddling both worlds. And eventually you get to the other side of that bridge where you get to refreeze in your new reality. And I think I shared that kind of 3-phase paradigm because I think it's useful to think about your communications along the way, right? Because this is an expectation game, especially if this is client-facing software. If they have to change the way they interact with you on a regular basis, download a new app, interact with a new booking platform, re-enter their credit card information, right? Then throughout that whole 3-phase process, you're going to have to let them know it's coming. You have to give them deadlines for taking action. You're going to have to retrain them on how to use the new software. So there's something about kind of the communication along the lines, along that journey that is just so crucial. And it ties into what you were saying, Fisher. It's kind of expectation setting along the way. And I find when you can do that well, your clients will come along for the journey, right? Your clients will follow along. But you got to be clear about what's changing, when, and why.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I can,
Anything you would add to that?
Just one final point, it occurs to me. In addition to managing expectations, I think it's a great point too to consider if it's a client-facing platform. There's a whole other bucket of things one must be cognizant of and really communicate around. I think regardless of which software platform you're using, and again, this is probably, I would zoom out and say this is frankly vendor advice, is understand a vendor is not your employee. Right, so we start there. You can't manage your vendor the same way you could manage an employee. However, I do think one of the issues that I have seen, certainly at MFF and some of the gyms that I have coached, is you also shouldn't throw up your hands completely and say, like, there's nothing I can do. I'm at the mercy of the vendors. And in fact, a lot of the skills that one can develop, learning how to set very clear standards of communication, very clear deadlines, updating to the deadlines, a lot of the same skills one uses if you get very good at managing employees, which I know is a journey and we're not all there yet. You can apply a lot of those to have a more effective relationship with the contractor and vendor. Now, again, they are not employees. So what this means is, frankly, it's a different set of expectations. They likely work in an organization with a different set of cultural and behavioral norms. And in fact, that, I would say, the biggest pain points we've ever had are when my assessment, if I step out of my owner of MFF hat and I put on my consultant understanding of organizational culture hat, when there was a real disconnect just between the organizational norms of MFF and the places we've worked with. MFF has become a very buttoned up, a very tightly run ship. And that is not always the case with everyone we've worked with historically. Yeah. And that doesn't mean those places are bad people. And sometimes they have, in fact, by definition, they have skills that we do not have. And I think that's part of an art too, right? Because on the one hand, I think one can and should hold people accountable to have some clarity around timelines and, the basics of integrity, right? Do the things you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. But at the same time, allowing some grace and realizing that just different organizations run different ways. They have different ethos. It doesn't mean that they're morally incorrect or there's anything kind of wrong with them. It's just people do things differently. So that's my gentle suggestion if you are someone that trends towards type A, and if you perhaps have a team of type A people, is be kind to your vendors and contractors. There are different ways of being people have in the world and in their businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial distinction, right? Because whether you're talking about software or you're talking about other vendor services, if you and your team and their team are going to be interacting a lot, there's a lot of kind of interpersonal exchange, right? And that's more true for maybe like a marketing vendor or maybe even a cleaning service where you're actually going to be interacting with ideas and instructions back and forth. Then when you're vetting a vendor like that, then you are really vetting them like you would an employee. And you're making sure that there's some values alignment between you and your vendor, that there is an approach to doing business and communication that's aligned. Because, whether you're a super type A organization or maybe you're the opposite, maybe your organization is lovingly very kind of go with the flow and we make it up as we go and you like that, then working with a vendor who's super type A and going to put you on hard ass deadlines is going to be your worst life, right? Maybe you need it, right? I might make the case that you need it, but maybe it's not fun for you. So I think that's a really good point, Fisher. That is, if your software is going to require a lot of engagement with you and them, then you might want to ask them questions like, cool, how do you handle things when things go wrong, right? What happens if our billing's wrong? What happens if we're unsatisfied with our service? How do you handle it when we want to add features and you don't want to add them? You might want to have some of those questions if this is going to be a long-term kind of interpersonal relationship. Yeah, that's a great point.
Because for better or for worse, I think it is true that probably becomes most useful with the more traditional contractor vendor where there's more human contact, because one of, I think, the frustrations people have often with these tech software platforms is those platforms are designed to scale, which means it is defined by the lack of human touch, right? So when people have issues with their email marketing software or their billing and scheduling software or their text message platform, it's because you can't even get anybody on the phone. They're just like, there's nobody that works there, right? They direct you to videos, a robot, you write in things and the robot automates the FAQ page, which you already found, and then you can't find the answer to the thing. And, some of them, God love them, we'll upsell you to our higher level service for X. And then you can talk to someone once a month. And they also won't know what they're doing. I digress. Too many war scars here. Too many war scars.
You can feel the pain through the podcast.
You're not alone, listener.
I love that. Yeah, I started this by being, I don't know if we have much to say about this, and then 20 minutes
classic.
later, I think
turns out we have a lot to say about this.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. I think that there were some good takeaways there in terms of, really vetting vendors, getting lots of opinions, having a few options, but not too many, making sure you talk to real users of the software, to give you the real truth about their experience. I think there's a lot of good takeaways. So, great conversation, my friend. All right, listeners. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully you found that valuable, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good day, Fisher.
Bye now.